Evening, everyone. In accordance with section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting. Excuse me. A notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Milburn Education Center at 7 o'clock on August 12th, 2025. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Here.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Here.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Here.
Mr. Stoller,
Present.
Mayor Romano,
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the June 17th, 2025 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? May I have a motion to approve the June 17th, 2025 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the June 26th, 2025 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the June 15th, 2025 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the June 15th, 2025 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So today we are celebrating a very special birthday week. So I'm going to come over there. You can sit, standing, whatever you want to do. Do you want to, whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable. You want to get up? Do you want to face everybody or you want to face forward, wherever? Are you good with that? Get out of those? Yeah, sure. See the face line. Lauren, here. I'm right there. So today we're celebrating a very truly remarkable milestone. 100 years of life, love, and legacy. As a longtime resident of our community, you've touched countless lives with your warmth, wisdom, and presence. And we are all honored to share this special moment with you. Here's to a life well lived and a community made better by your presence. So Hilda's going to be 100 years old. Whereas Hilda Gutierrez will joyfully celebrate her 100th birthday on August 17th, 2025. Whereas Hilda was married to her late husband Raul for 69 years and has resided in Milburn Township since 1957. And whereas Hilda is the proud mother of Jerry Gutierrez, Ida Espinoza, Armando Gutierrez, and Patricia Hetherington, grandmother of 11, great-grandmother of 25, and great-great-grandmother of 7. Known and loved by many others who have joined her family and good friend and neighbor to many more. And whereas Hilda is being honored this day for the exemplary way she has lived her life since arriving from Bogota, Colombia, maintaining a very positive outlook, loving her faith, and cared for and adoring her family and friends. Now, therefore, I, Annette Romano, Mayor of the Township of Milburn, on behalf of the Township Committee and members of the Milburn Township community, on this 12th day of August 2025, wish to extend my congratulations and best wishes, as well as that of the Township Committee, to Hilda on her 100th birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Hilda. Happy birthday to you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We have one with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Two, because I'm old.
You want it, we're gonna take one more. Oh, my God. You're part of it. Thank you so much.
We're leaving, but
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you,
happy
everybody.
birthday, thank you so much.
The committeeman Stoll, you're scheduled to present the proclamation to the fire department members.
Are we gonna do it before they come to you?
Thank you.
All right. All right. Whereas the Milburn Township Committee values the hard work, dedication, and courage of our Milburn Township firefighters and police and recognize those who have performed outstanding service for our community. And whereas our Milburn Township fighters protect us from harm, keep our community safe every single day, and the township appreciates these noble individuals, acknowledges that others like them to continue to make sacrifices to safeguard that which we hold dear unselfishly. And whereas on July 14th, 2025, the Milburn Township Fire Department was dispatched to Union County Division of Emergency Services quarters for a mutual aid request for the 5-ton high water rescue truck, Rescue 5. The Union County area, inclusive of Plainfield, Westville, Cranford, and Scotch Plains, was inundated with numerous calls for service, with many reporting trapped residents, employees, and stranded motorists due to 6+ inches of rain, which created perilous and life-threatening situations throughout the township of Scotch Plains. And whereas, under the delegation and support of Fire Chief Robert Echeverria, Milburn firefighters alongside Scotch Plains Fire Department, Denville, Hanover, Morris County, and Bridgewater water rescue teams utilizing front-end loaders, fire apparatus, boats, and high water vehicles reached and rescued many trapped and/or stranded motorists on Route 22. Milburn firefighters conducted approximately 30 water rescues. This fast-paced, life-threatening flash flooding caused extreme property damage and endangered many lives. Many lives were saved because of the heroic actions, hard work, and dedication and teamwork by the firefighters working in an immediate hazardous environment. And whereas, without regard for their own personal safety, the Milburn Township Fire Department assisted in the heroic and successful rescue of the many residents and stranded motorists from perilous situations. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee of Township of Milburn on behalf of Milburn Township residents on its 12th day of August 2025, recognize Fire Captain Murison, Firefighter Tarrant, Firefighter Carroll, and Probationary Firefighter Vaughn, who all assisted in the successful rescue, and extend our appreciation that they so rightly deserve for their selfless and heroic acts in assisting and protecting the many lives. Thank you, guys. I can take that.
One
Russell,
more.
what I'm saying anyway.
Thank you. Chief Echeverria. You're up.
We're doing the promotion now?
Yes, I'm sorry. Resolution 25-189. Yep, motions.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, congratulations to the four individuals for their heroic actions that night. It's a good feeling that Milburn was okay that night and that we were able to share our resources with our neighboring communities to assist them. And I really owe to thank the committee for that. The high water rescue truck was purchased after Ida. So we're just fortunate that we have that and we were able to help someone else. So thank you for the committee and thank the individuals as well. Good evening, Mayor Romano, Deputy Mayor Cohen, esteemed members of the Township Committee, Timothy, Christine, valued colleagues, friends, and family. On behalf of all the members of the Milburn Fire Department, I'd like to convey our profound gratitude to the Township Committee and to the community. It is both an honor and an uplifting privilege to present the candidate for promotion this evening, the person whose dedication and hard work has been an inspiration to all of us. Joseph Odie. Firefighter Joseph Odie is being promoted from firefighter to the rank of fire captain. Joseph was born and raised in Fairfield, New Jersey. In 2012, he joined the United States Marine Corps and served as a mortarman with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines out of Camp Lejeune. He served multiple overseas deployments, including Eastern Europe and Afghanistan, where he earned a combat action ribbon, having worked with diverse backgrounds, held previous leadership positions, and experienced high-pressure situations. Joe knew that fire service was a great fit for him. After joining the Marine Corps in 2015, he was hired by the Milburn Fire Department as a firefighter EMT in 2016. Firefighter Odie's accomplishments include the UASI Metro Strike Team and the Department Apparatus Committee. Joe always strives to lead by example and make things better than they were before. That's his motto. Joseph Odie is joined by his loving family, father Joseph Odie, mother Maria, brother Vinny, and his brother's fiancee Brianna. Their unwavering support has been a pillar of strength for Joseph, and their presence here today is a testament to the unity and warmth within our fire department community. As he steps into his new role, Captain Odie will be assigned as the company officer on the 2nd Platoon. His leadership and experience will undoubtedly bring a positive impact to his new team and to our department as a whole. Mayor?
Yep.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 25-189, which confirms the promotion?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Mr. Second
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Definitely.
Mayor Romano?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Congratulations.
I state your name.
I, Joseph Odie,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution
I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New Jersey,
and the State of New Jersey,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of captain
the duties of captain
of the Milburn Township Fire Department
of the Milburn Township Fire Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability,
So help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Yep.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. Thanks. We're gonna get started, everyone. Okay, reports. Excuse me. Wait. Excuse me. Excuse me, thank you. Excuse me, everyone. Thank you.
All right, so let's go ahead and start doing some reports, committee updates. Special Improvement District, Town Hall remains a vibrant hub of summer activity where Milburn meets, drinks, and eats. Open container law. Market calendars for family movie night, sponsored by Home Instead, and I always mention the sponsors because they're doing a great job for us. It's Tuesday, August 9th at 8 p.m. The original Jumanji starring Robin Williams will be showing. We're also celebrating the tremendous success of the Upper Milburn Avenue Block Party. Saw a lot of people there. It was fantastic. The place was packed. There's 1,000 attendees that participated and 50 local businesses. One of the best events yet. And a special thank you goes out to our generous sponsors for that, Garden Homes and the Metropolitan, whose support made that event happen. Exciting news for downtown. Explore Milburn Short Hills received the first $75,000 installment of the $150,000 Main Street, New Jersey Transformation Grant. These funds will go towards sidewalk improvements along Milburn Avenue between Main Street and Lackawanna Place. We're collaborating with the DA and Christine Bugle on the project's design and scope and share more updates as it progresses. Board of Education Liaison. Kyle Arlington joined as a Director of Human Resources. He was the former Assistant Superintendent in Milburn and has come back, and we welcome him back. Construction projects are all well underway at the schools. The resurfacing of the football field is now complete, and it looks great. Hope to see everybody out on Friday nights. We have an opening on the board due to a resignation. Applications are due by September 4th to fill the remaining term, which is September through December 2025. If anybody wants to put in an application for that.
Which board?
Board of Education, BOE. Joint facilities, no current updates. Mountain Valley Emergency Communication Center, no updates on summer break. Flood mitigation, gave an extensive overview last time. We can listen to that if you want the updates. Open Space Tax Fund, of which I chair. We had our first meeting. It was a very productive meeting. We went through setting the procedural basics and bylaws, etc. And we'll be having our next meeting to review such items next month. And then on the affordable housing, I will defer to council because nothing I can say will not get me in trouble.
Deputy Mayor Cole?
Yeah, actually, on the joint field, we do continue to make progress with the board. We're not there yet, but we're close. So hopefully, in the next few weeks, we will come to an agreement on that project. And then planning board has really been ratified the capital plan for the Town Hall Plaza, for the Town Hall renovation, sorry, not Town Hall Plaza, Town Hall renovation. And then also review some of the ordinances that are on the schedule tonight for consistency with the master plan, and they were all approved.
Committeeman Cosgrove?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On the report on the HPC activities, you'll see it on the agenda tonight. They've been busy working on getting certain properties in town designated. So the paper mill's on tonight, Town Hall Plaza and Taylor Park. That's it.
Committeeman Secretary?
Deputy Mayor Cohen covered the planning board. So the Environmental Commission is working on a skip the stuff ordinance. This is a great ordinance that will make it so that purveyors of takeout food and whatnot, instead of just automatically throwing utensils in the bag, we'll have to ask you, do you want those? Because a lot of times people don't want them and might generate extra trash. So we should see that sometime this fall. The EC will also have a booth at Rocktoberfest, and they're gonna be setting up temporary water filling stations, so make sure to bring your water bottles. And at their booth, they'll be giving out information on a number of initiatives. And finally, on September 6th, at St. Rose, the EC will be there for Stewardship Day. And they're gonna give out community information about some of their initiatives, and they'll also give out some information on the new seasonal loader restriction. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Oh,
Support Jen.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sure.
No worries. Good evening, Mayor and members of the Township Committee and members of the community. Brief report this evening. We've just got a lot of projects going on in town. Just want to provide a brief update on those. The Ridgewood Greenwood Drainage Project is slated to begin starting early next week. There's been a lot of pieces delivered already. The pipe for the actual project will be delivered sometime next week, and tree removals will begin either on August 21st or August 22nd. Our 2025 road improvement project's underway, and paving can begin sometime next week as well. And we're also waiting for PSE&G to come in and do their projects that they've committed to for this year. They will be communicating their work before their actual projects begin and they mobilize. One other note, just want to share with the township as a whole, just make sure if you're putting any bags of waste out that they're in a closed container. We just want to make sure that there's no issues there for garbage getting around in the community, so just want to make note of that. We shared that out on social media as well. That's all I've got for this evening.
Thank you.
Committee second Monday, if you want, I drafted a skip the stuff ordinance for the Township of Livingston. I'm happy to share it to you. It was adopted last month. And I would just like to know the one key is the education of the businesses. That one, I'm sure you have it on your radar, but I'm happy to pass that along.
Yeah, the EC is working with Explore Milburn Short Hills, or more specifically Steve Grillo, to work before we even pass the
Yeah.
ordinance, inform them of what it is and what it entails, because it'll actually save them money.
Yeah, I'll forward that to you, Mr. Grillo.
Great, thank you.
Affordable housing update. I have our third round update. We had a very brief case management conference on August 4th. The township and the developer RPM submitted competing orders of compliance. The board still has decided which order or a hybrid of the order that will be entered. But I fully believe that our third round compliance order should be entered in due course and probably in pretty short. Fourth round, objections to our fourth round are to be made by the end of this month, August 31st. To date, no objections have been filed. I do represent other towns and I have been in consult with other attorneys. It seems like there's a conscious effort from Fair Share Housing Center and developers to wait to the last minute to file the objections, as there's been very few filed, even though some are known, and I'm not saying there's any known to the township. So once those objections are, if any objections are filed, I'll certainly notify this committee and the public will be aware of that also. Other than that, I have no further updates.
Thank you. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there's 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open public comment.
Hello,
Good evening.
good evening. This is my second meeting in a row, so thank you all for listening. My name is Jennifer Duckworth. I am a Milburn resident, and I'm here today to speak with you about Tour de Milburn. Tour de Milburn is Sunday, September 7th, 2025. Since 2020, Tour de Milburn has registered over 1,700 participants. After January 2020's New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, the Jorge Maspetro and me joined with other Milburn Short Hill residents, Priya Patel, Lillian Cho, and Joe Esposito to form the Tour de Millburn Steering Committee. When COVID struck, Millburn Township listened and offered this fun, family-friendly, COVID-safe community building bike ride that celebrates safe biking in Millburn and Short Hills. Dedicated township staff from the Recreation Department, the Police Department, the Public Works Department, the Department of Public Works, and the volunteer First Aid Squad support every year, and we appreciate their support. Tour de Millburn offers 3 rides. There's the 2 mile, which is a closed course for families riding together and for individuals who are inexperienced wanting to ride that closed course. It's 2 miles and it's at 9 a.m. There's the 7 mile, which is for experienced cyclists, 10 and older who have more experience riding longer distances. That's at 8:30, and a 15 mile for advanced cyclists, 16 and older who have more experience riding long distances and elevation changes. And that is at 8 a.m. So they go in opposite order. The Millburn Township website, if you Google Tour de Millburn, it will come up as the page. There's a QR code on it. And for more information and how to register, and also we're looking for volunteers if anyone wants to help. Thank you to the rec department for continuing to support us. And we are looking forward to seeing everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Trina Frankel. I've lived in Short Hills for over 50 years and practiced general internal medicine in town for over 30 years. I want to thank Jamie Hawkins, our town senior citizens coordinator, and Shawnee Jarvis, outreach manager of AAA Northeast, for a wonderful program they held last week at the Giro Center. 9 senior drivers, or as they call them, seasoned drivers, participated in a program called Car Fit. We sat in our cars while teachers from AAA showed us how to make sure we were safely belted in, the correct distance to sit from the wheel in case the airbag is deployed, how to adjust the mirrors correctly, and other safety tips. Keeping seniors safe on the road helps them, but also protects everyone. Of course, it also keeps insurance costs down. This was a great example of government and private industry working together to improve our communal life. A community does not prosper if we see it as a zero-sum game, where if you get more, I get less. We do not pay taxes as a quid pro quo, expecting all our money to be spent on our local needs. But because we pay taxes because we believe when the least of us benefit, we all benefit. We are part of a group much larger than our little town. We cannot put walls around Millburn Short Hills, hoping to keep us protected from the problems of the greater world. Rather, providing healthcare for all prevents the spread of communicable diseases, providing good education for all, affordable housing for all, healthy food for all, protects our families, enables the next scientific breakthrough, preserves our planet, and helps our economy grow. So I would ask our township committee to keep this bigger picture in mind as they advocate for Millburn Short Hills. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Debbie Jacoby. I live in Maplewood, but I'm a longtime member of the Wyoming Presbyterian Church. I'm an elder of membership, of mission and outreach, and I come to you to speak this evening in pertinence to ordinance 2715-25 and ordinance 2708-25. The first paragraph kind of says it all. The Township of Millburn Master Plan Reexamination and Update adopted December 19, 2018 seeks to protect the character of the established residential neighborhoods. I dare say that Wyoming Presbyterian Church has defined the neighborhood of the Wyoming district of Millburn for over 150 years. We celebrated our 150th anniversary last year, and what we do to serve that community and the immediate area is outstanding. As a 35-year member, I will tell you that we are known as the Pumpkin Patch Church. Many of you have come and helped buy pumpkins and whatever. I'm particularly concerned about these ordinances and the limitations about which would be allowed for us to use our building. defining a 9 PM limitation on a rental. We don't do a lot of this, but if somebody comes into the building, it's unreasonable to expect that a gathering would end at 9 PM. There are so many other aspects of this that concern us, but I'll leave you with that. Wyoming Church is a very important part of this community, as are all the churches and houses of worship in this community. Religion is under attack in so many different ways. It won't always be such, and there's a lot of people who find solace in these houses of worship. They are important to continue. And if you limit what we do, you will limit how we serve our community and perhaps close our doors. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Beverly Friedlander Ostrowski. I'm a resident of Milburn and I am the interim pastor at Wyoming Presbyterian Church.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm shortly here. I just moved here in May and I'm very excited to be a part of this community. And I rise also to speak about the same two ordinances that our elder just did. My first concern with 2708 is there was no notice given to our church by any kind of certified letter. And so we do not know if we are protected for having been here 150 years. But I'm certain we're going to, and certain, I'm not a landscaper, but I can look out my window and tell you we don't meet some of these regulations on buffers. So I'm concerned about whether we would end up in violation and never had a chance to come to you with a plat or anything to show our concern regarding that. And finally, as to the programming within the facility, I would like to hear discussion from you, particularly about how a town clerk is supposed to determine what constitutes the worship or educational work of our ministry, given that we uphold adherence to our faith, uphold a law that says we should love our God with all our heart and mind and soul and strength. That is the whole of our life is about worship. And the second, like it, we should love our neighbor. So we take very seriously our next door neighbors, our across the street neighbors, and the ones further out and even globally, which means our reach and programming has many varieties. And it is our hope that we are constantly making this gift to us, the stewardship of this facility, available to anyone who might want to call Milburn home or come to Milburn to explore our town and support our businesses. And we don't want to be concerned with limiting that. One way to think about it is weddings. If a non-member were to ask to use the facility for a wedding venue, what if they didn't fit the parameters that you think about with that? And they wanted 150 guests in a facility rated for over 200 people. We could not meet the 75 max for an event that our staff was not supporting on site in that moment as the officiants. So I think there's just more discussion that we'd like. And I thank you for your service. Our founder, John Calvin, says that public service is the highest call. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening to the community and the meeting attendees. My name is Tara Nazareth, and I've been a homeowner and resident now for almost 15 years in lovely Milburn in the R5 Wyoming district. In that time, I've seen the town develop significantly. So today I'll share with you my residential perspective on the ordinance that we voted on today with regards to buffers, etc. For many residents like myself and my husband, we moved to Milburn to be in this wonderful community. Milburn offers serenity, proximity to nature, and access to key amenities and locations both in-state and in neighboring states. I have a few key points to communicate with regards to consideration of the proposed ordinance. First, I want to thank the TC for their continued commitment and their efforts to balance growth and neighborhood preservation in our town. My view is that this ordinance recognizes individual homeowners and families that have invested in being in Milburn. and it lends necessary and helpful residential protection during development. I support these measures and which allow residents to enjoy their properties as the town evolves. My second point is to request that mitigation components from the ordinance, where reasonable and possible, be standardly applied to pre-existing non-conforming use properties abutting single-family homes. In cases where redevelopment is being proposed. I live behind the Wyoming Club on Linden Street, now purchased by the Little Cub LLC, which is the Maplewood Tennis Club. Over the years, some of the uses have dramatically and negatively impacted literally all the adjacent residential properties, which is 8 bordering properties alone. Negative impacts have included intense and unprecedented noise levels to the point of multiple neighbors calling the Milburn police for help. As well, there have been privacy and stormwater management issues. The impact of these issues on residents should be mitigated, even if they are not part of new development and they are part of redevelopment. For example, lighting and tree screening measures from this ordinance could easily be lifted and applied to cases of redevelopment, reconstruction, or renovation of existing structures. My third point is a question to the TC to consider and clarify how the implemented ordinances will be upheld by the town in the future. What support and cooperation is needed from other township entities? The HPC, the zoning board, the police, how do we ensure these are upheld? And finally, I request that key points from the development ordinance be documented and today's discussion be documented and shared with other township partners who can steward consistent consideration and implementation, such as the aforementioned township entities and decision-making components. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Mazer, resident. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your dedication, service to the community. I have some concerns considering the two ordinances that are on the agenda tonight relating to houses of worship. As many of you know, the township many years ago was in effect required to pay attorney's fees because the earlier ordinance relating to houses of worship was found to be violative of RLUIPA by a state court. We have ordinances tonight that I think are even more violative of the ordinance. I have a question concerning the DOJ investigation, which related to the township's actions against a house of worship in this town. There was a multi-million-dollar attorney's fees that Milburn ran up that ultimately were paid by the insurance carrier. I'd like to know if you could tell us whether or not the insurance that we have is experience related and whether in effect the JIF and MEL raised Milburn's rates to compensate for having to pay a multi-million-dollar attorney's fees. I have a few comments on the proposed ordinances. First of all, relating to the Wyoming Presbyterian Church, I was on the zoning board when one of the applications came up for the expansion. The Wyoming Presbyterian Church doesn't have a single on-site parking space. I voted for it because I think it's a benefit to the town, even though they did not have any on-site parking. I think the comments were that you may not conclude some of your events by 9 o'clock. As I read the ordinance, you're not even entitled to have the events. The ordinance says the site must provide sufficient off-street parking for all attendees. So therefore, you can't have any events if this ordinance is adopted. The second is if you want to proceed with this, I think you should tell the township the reason that you're intending to adopt this ordinance. Have there been complaints against houses of worship? Why aren't we including public schools in this ordinance as well as private places of assembly, such as the Racket Club, the Short Hills Club, Canoe Brook, and the Wyoming Tennis Club. Will existing houses of worship and private schools be grandfathered in, or are we going to enact this against all of them? And also, I think it should address whether this is going to be compliant with RLUIPA, since it treats religious places of assembly on unequal terms with non-religious
Your
places
time is up, I'm
of
sorry.
assembly.
Yeah, we don't have a beep,
Okay.
sorry. Maybe a beep? There it is, sorry.
Hi, I'm Bart Corin. I've lived in Millburn for 32 years. I know that the town did not pass the High Center plans to expand. And now I understand town is negotiating with them again, and going back to the table to discuss things. But as I read in one of the minutes, just bring me a plan that complies with the town ordinances. So, but now, there are things that are not even in the ordinances that we want the High Center to comply with. I don't get it, either the rules are the rules or they're not. I mean, I read in the minutes that if you bring this to me, I will sign it. But now you're moving the goalpost in the middle of the game. The same board member who said, I'll sign it, said that this rabbi is untrustworthy, we can't trust him anyway. Well, this sounds like a very untrustworthy thing, changing the rules in the middle of the game. Why would anyone have to comply with something that's not a rule or not on the books? If you vote for it and you pass that, that'll be for future construction in town. But I was told that this is not an act of vengeance or hate of the Orthodox Jewish community. But it sure feels like they're being singled out, and I don't like it. I would like someone to explain why the rules should be different for them when it's not the law.
Thank you.
Good evening, Diane Eglo, former Township Committee member, mayor, lifelong member of Millburn. Mr. Saccomundi, you were elected for the entire town. I mistakenly supported you. Big mistake. I was completely taken by surprise at the last TC meeting when you carried on a tirade against Democrats in Trenton for a $500,000 grant for pay for the much needed pump station at the Gilbert Road and South Mountain section. Such a completely inappropriate and partisan speech that I was waiting for Mayor Romano to stop you. But no one seems to be able to stop your obstructive path. You have decided that Martha Callahan, the town engineer of 25 years, should no longer be the engineer to review planning board applications. Ms. Callahan knows every road and property in this town. She does not play favorites, and nor is she compromised in any way. Now, is your idea to only bring on engineers that have been pre-screened to clear or reject applications as you and several others on the planning board want? You have spearheaded these new and completely prejudicial ordinances that absolutely target the High Center. You are simply adding to the realistic case against the township. Now tonight, there's another new ordinance that targets every house of worship and private school in the township. Pingree, Winston, standalone preschools. In the middle of August, have these entities been notified? Do they know what your plan is to step on their religious and educational and civil rights? Why haven't the public schools been included? Is this the latest ordinance even legal? Why is the Rackets Club, the Short Hills Club, etc. not included? I am not an attorney, but this seems pretty suspect to me. Since when does Millburn Township government interfere in this manner? And if by chance, if you have 3 votes, which I certainly hope you don't, to pass this, are you going to do a final read in September again, when everybody is just coming back from vacation, starting school? Is this your plan, Mr. Saccomundi? And if you have 2 votes from the township committee, disgraceful.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ruth Kirschner. I'm a resident of Millburn Township, and I'm also the president of Congregation B'nai Israel on Millburn Avenue. I'm standing up here tonight to express my concern about ordinance 2715-25. While I understand the concern about the need to preserve the character of residential neighborhoods, the fact remains that we also need to support our churches and synagogues who provide so much support to our community, religious and spiritual, but also communal and even at times financial. They are a lifeline to so many. The reality is that our houses of worship are already struggling, particularly since COVID. They need to find creative ways to stay afloat and to create connections to the community so that they will be able to continue to serve the Milburn community. I'm concerned that the proposed ordinance has major implications for our houses of worship. Strict township oversight of the activities at houses of worship, down to details about how many people can attend and what time the event should end, is not only impractical, but also could have a chilling effect. In all of my years in involvement in my house of worship, I am unaware of any complaints regarding our activities. So why make us go through these hoops? I hope that you will vote against this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Debbie Frank, Township resident. I have real concerns about these ordinances, which seem to me targeted as a high center. Not least because of its timing, but I want to address another aspect of this. The problem it shares with recent decisions on affordable housing. With respect to both of these issues, the committee seems to feel that your decisions are responses to particular circumstances, divorced from the decisions, or in the case of affordable housing, non-decisions that came before. To a limited extent, this is true. There may well be certain aspects that are somewhat unique. Prior committees may have felt the same and seen themselves as fashioning discrete solutions, discrete circumstances. The problem is that these decisions are not only or even primarily decisions made by a particular committee. All decisions committees make are decisions of the Township of Milburn and will be seen in the context of earlier decisions by not any particular committee, but by the Township of Milburn. Whether it be regarding affordable housing or the High Center, history matters. Decisions made by any Township committee are part of a continuum, a pattern of responses to recurring issues. I can't judge the sincerity of this committee regarding whether or not there is bias against the High Center or affordable housing beyond my ability. What I can do is warn you that when seen in relation to all that has come before, the credibility as to lack of bias on either of these issues could be called into question. The Township carries with it the weight of all decisions and non-decisions previously made. The history of the Township's interactions with the High Center and with affordable housing matters. Appearances matter. The history matters. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Bell. I live in the poet section. I'm going to be speaking about the consent agenda. As Sheila Oliver admonished me, the devil is buried in the details. As my custom, I sent you a heads up letter with comments, chronology and various case law. None of you have mentioned or responded to any of these questions. Starting like the bill list. We're paying about $260,000 for the renovation of the town pool. How are we funding it? We haven't issued bonds yet for fans. How are we funding it? And the reason I raise this is at the last meeting, you approved a payment for the council of the city. You paid $1,000 in excess of what you did on your resolution. Did anyone read this? Did anyone? And according to the resolution, DA and municipal attorney were supposed to review it. The reason I raise this, we just heard a big praise about the Upper Milburn fair. I made an open request to see if you had any permits or applications. There were no permits approving that block party. Later on, you're going to be approving a beer garden with Oktoberfest. When the advertisements for the street fair occurred, they said there was going to be a beer garden, but they never came to you for approval. Who's watching the barn? Tonight, you're going to be approving two agreements. We're getting back to the same issue that we had with the 9 Main Street settlement and the High Center settlement that happened years ago. Why can't we see the agreement? There are 2 agreements that there's gonna be a forestry plan. Why can't the public see what the plan that you're approving tonight? You're approving a settlement with the SOA. Why can't we know what the terms are? Why can't we know what additional costs there are? What if there's gonna be additional manpower? What is the secret? This is the problem about lack of transparency that we've had throughout this community. There's a memorandum of understanding, not memorandum, giving topology to do a redevelopment plan. When was the area of need of redevelopment done? Is it still valid? What happened in Malanga versus West Orange? Question is, who owns the redevelopment plan? Is it you or is it the planning board? These are things we need to know. Closed executive session meeting. You haven't approved closed executive minutes since January 1st, 2025. How do we know that you're getting proper advice? There's one thing that we haven't been talking about is the Bureau of Properties litigation. There was a trial, bench trial on April 7th. We're still waiting for a decision. There are motions that were heard on July 15th. She denied one of the motions. We're still waiting for an order. We are entitled to answers. I get questions. I'll be back later. Thank you.
Evan Frankel, 6 Park Road, Short Hills. Good evening, Township Committee. Thanks for your time and effort and energy around everything you guys do in the town. I'm here to express my strong support for ordinances 2515-25 and 2708-25. These measures are not abstract zoning tweaks. They're essential tools to preserve the residential character, safety, and environmental stability of neighborhoods like ours. In recent years, we've seen proposals for large-scale, non-residential developments on residential lots that push right up to the limits of our code. Even when technically compliant, these projects have fundamentally changed the nature of the neighborhood. They bring extensive impervious coverage, in one recent case, more than a 10-fold increase, which raises serious concerns about stormwater management, flooding, and long-term maintenance responsibilities. They can also bring increased traffic and parking demands into areas which were never designated for such loads. Our streets near schools and parks already experience congestion and safety risks for pedestrians. Without strong requirements for buffers, setbacks, and traffic controls, these impacts spill directly into our driveways and crosswalks. Ordinance 2715-25 addresses the root of this by tightening limits on non-residential expansion in single-family zones. It closes loopholes that can allow commercial-scale buildings to appear in low-density neighborhoods without the rigorous scrutiny they deserve. Ordinance 2708-25 goes further by strengthening the standards for site plans requiring real functioning buffers, appropriate setbacks, and clear controls on lot coverage, parking, and lighting. This is not about preventing institutions from thriving. It's about ensuring that they grow in a way that respects the neighbor's rights, quiet, safety, and the use of their property. We've heard from our environmental commission that large impervious expansions can cut a site's permeable area by nearly a quarter, risking runoff problems for decades. We've seen planning experts recommend better screening, safer traffic flow, and more thoughtful site layouts. These ordinances would give our boards the teeth to make those improvements a reality, upfront, not after costly hearings or litigation. Ultimately, this is about balance. Our neighborhoods can welcome diverse uses, but not at the cost of flooding basements, unsafe intersections, and losing the very qualities that drew us here in the first place. Both ordinances strike the balance. They safeguard property values, environmental health, and public safety while still allowing projects that meet high community standards to proceed. I urge you to adopt these ordinances. Thank you.
Anyone else before we go online?
Alexander Kirschenbaum, member of the resident of this town. I would like the board to strongly think about what you're trying to propose, especially tightening the ordinances that are already the most restrictive in the state of New Jersey. Look at any similar town in New Jersey. the conditional use ordinances for house of worship as is, as they are right now. They are the stringent they are in the state. You're trying to tighten them further. In essence, basically precluding creation of house of worship. Also, you're saying we're gonna try to improve the residential character of the town. The current house of worship, are they an affront to you? Because none of them are meeting the current or proposed zoning requirements. Are we gonna take down the bell towers of the churches and their spires because they're too tall? Why are we trying to tighten the already impossible to meet requirements for the house of worship? Which is not a commercial, but an inherently beneficial use according to the federal and state law. In fact, those developments should be afforded more leniency. Nobody tries to build unsafe house of worship. But even to put something in town would require a 3-acre lot, which barely exists in town. It already eliminates the possibility in the vast majority of the township to do that. And now you're shrinking the envelope of building, now you're shrinking now you're increasing the buffers, and you're making the extremely onerous requirements more onerous. You're trying to clarify the currently ambiguous zoning ordinance, but you're clarifying it by tightening every restrictions possible. By making buffer or whatever setback all of a sudden from 25 to 50, making it a buffer. In fact, precluding ability to create a house of worship in town. And that's, I think, neither state nor federal government would look likely upon. And I think this creates significant legal risks for the town for no reason. Because house of worship, by their definition, improve the community, at least in the eyes of the law.
Jay Morelli, Township President. I'd like to start by thanking all the committee members for their service to the community. I'd like to talk on 2 topics tonight. First, I'd like to compliment the township on all of the fabulous activities that were hosted over the summer. Committeeman Stover mentioned the Upper Milburn Block Party, the Thursday night concerts at the park, the Town Hall Plaza events, National Night Out, just to name a few. These have all been fantastic. And I really want to compliment everyone involved in the planning, organizing, volunteers that make these events possible. So thank you. Next, I'd like to turn the attention to the topic of school safety, as yet another school year is about to commence. On July 3rd of this year, a swatting incident occurred at our high school. The police department received a call from an unknown individual claiming he was armed and present at the Milburn High School. Fortunately, this threat was determined to be not credible. With that said, it is a stark reminder of the danger students face. According to Education Week, there have been 7 school shootings this year through May on the property of K through 12 schools that resulted in injuries and deaths. And there have been 228 such shootings since 2018. In the vast majority of these cases, the shooter was a student or a former student, and they obtained the firearm from their home or that of a family member or friends. And these numbers do not include shootings at college campuses or shootings where there were no injuries. That number this year is about 75. I asked the TC to direct Chief Gilfetter and the police department to issue a reminder to residents on the importance of safe storage of firearms, and to do this annually, if not more frequently. Safe storage of firearms is recommended by advocates on both sides of the firearm debate. And after all, if we can remind residents to lock their cars, we can certainly ask them to store their firearms securely where minors cannot access them. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, resident. This past Sunday, a fellow resident and member of the planning board, who's a neighbor, sent me a text asking if I was also awakened around 7 a.m. or 7:30 by the 5 or 6 construction vehicles parked on Coniston Road, working on a new construction project at that site. I was. I'd like to know, what are we doing to enforce our zoning laws with developers and their construction crews? They're constantly pushing against the rules for many years now, and whatever we are doing is not enough. For them to turn up on a Sunday morning at 7 or 8 a.m. with 5 construction vehicles kind of demonstrates that. I'd also like to say these zoning related ordinances that are under attack this evening by some members of the public do something very important. They simply standardize the treatment of non-residential development adjacent to residential zones. Why would anyone be against the important exercise of the fiduciary duties of our TC members to protect our residents per the December 2019 updated master plan? And I'd like to turn to Ms. Eglo, who was a former member of the Township Committee and mayor. I think it's important to put in context her remarks. She was a member of the Township Committee in 2018, and she and her fellow members opened this town to the builders' remedy lawsuits that ensued. She was also a member in 2021 who signed the Fair Share Housing Agreement that brought the dump project with $1 sale of our taxpayer-funded public land and a $50 million financial backstop, meaning we are on the hook as taxpayers for the full $50 million to build this project on contaminated land. We'll never own it or manage it, but all we will have is the liability and the responsibility to deal with everything about the project. Is this someone who has any credibility in this town?
First mayor ever.
Oh, thank you very much.
Is this on? Okay. Christine Best, Milburn Township. I'm gonna talk first about all these ordinances that are developed. I've read through some of them briefly. I do see some concerns about existing houses of worship that exist and that are authorized in the township that have existed for a long time. You know, places like B'nai Jeshurun, B'nai Israel, et cetera. You know, the Wyoming church and all the other, facilities. I mean, you can't go back in time and make them comply. So I do think that should be part of the regulations, and I think what's really challenging is that there's only so much land available. So everybody seems to want to have a piece, right? Developers want a piece, they wanna make money, everybody wants to be in this town. But the value in this town is the beauty of this town. It's just like Malibu in California, the biggest drought by fire. It's gonna be redeveloped in not a great way. This town is special. It's really special. People come here because it's specialist. They want to build a religious organization because it's special. They want to live here because it's special. It's beautiful. If you just allow open zoning and no buffers and just anything goes kind of Wild West building, which is what is occurring here, and I'm taking it across the board, not just for religious institutions or schools, the town's going to collapse and it's going to actually be not a pretty place to live, and people are just going to move out, So I do think that these should be passed. I think there should be some re-looking at some of the finer things that some of the people commented on. But I do also want to talk about, I noticed you put in a little provision about wireless, okay, like or antennas set up. One of the things that's interesting is the Hartshorn Church is obviously making some type of revenue because they have some type of cellular, I didn't go up and look at it, tower in their church. And anybody can put that on any church's property or temple's property, and I think that's really also another reason. And then because they are pushing it up to the limits of our code, as Mr. Frankel had said, and I think it does, as some other people talked about, loses loopholes, and it does respect neighbors' rights, to live. And I actually have a constitutional right to live in a secular environment and to not practice religion. I am a Christian, I'm married to somebody Jewish, and I do go to temples and churches quite frequently, but I don't need to be disturbed by people's practices of religion. So I think it's very important that people have the right to live in peace on their property, not see blinding lights that are 12 feet high. It's not appropriate in a residential area. We make residents not put in lights like that. Why do people get to come in and just throw up big lights? So I think the buffer is completely adequate. I think these were well-crafted pieces, and I also want to point out.
Thank you, you read it.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Gilson and I live in the Wyoming section. I just wanted to speak on 2 points. One, I do live very close to the Wyoming Presbyterian Church. They've been a terrific neighbor, so I think any way they have operated and any way I could envision them operating, I think they should be grandfathered in. However, I'm very close also to the Wyoming Club, which is now under new ownership. And that's a situation where I think that I would hope some of these ordinances would be expanded to be effective with a situation like that. It's not a house of worship, but my property is right there. And if that, if the new owners develop it to rent it out for all kinds of different events that go late into the night, that's a real impact on the neighborhood. And it's a residential neighborhood, so I hope when you are looking at these ordinances, you won't only look at the few types of places that you've spoken of, but that you would expand it to look at places such as that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Tratnick. I'm a resident of Milburn. Been actually a resident for the last 57 years. I graduated high school here, came back to town. I have been a member of the Wyoming Church for like 57 years. I'm concerned about the ordinance that's being passed or being considered, and hope that you vote against it. The church and all the churches and houses of worship here do so much for this community, and part of the reason I came back after I graduated was because of the experiences I had at the church, and I think that's something that the committee should consider. And I appreciate all the hard work that you do on these committees, but I would question the constitutionality when we're looking at houses of worship and private schools and not considering all the other social clubs that are not going to be affected by this ordinance. So I appreciate your time and would hope that you vote against the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? You're muted.
Right, sorry about that.
Oh,
Hi,
you're
guys,
fine.
sorry. I'm on my tiny phone, just peeled off from the evening dog walk. So Regina Truitt, I live in Short Hills. Just a couple of things tonight. I enjoy your weekly updates, the ones that are delivered by phone and also emailed, but I enjoy when you talk about all of the wonderful activities that are taking place in town, but I would also request that you add equally important ordinances that are coming up for first reading and final passage second reading to your weekly updates. It's awfully hard for residents to keep track of that, so I would ask that you include those in your weekly messages, these important ordinances such as this one that's passed, that's being presented in August. And also further on your agendas, it would be great if you could have a link to the ordinances so that people could find the actual language by just clicking a link in the agenda. Lastly, I'm on the zoning board, so my comments only represent my personal comments and not those of the zoning board, but I wanted to make a few comments about ordinance 271525 that is up for first reading tonight. I was concerned about some of the language in it. Houses of worship are de facto community centers. We actually had this discussion at the Board of Ed years ago. They are a center for community members to meet. Sometimes some people consider them the bedrock of communities. And if you're secular, there are also events held for community members in these houses of worship. To limit the ability for them to have events there at 9 p.m. not only affects their revenue and their members, but I think it should be coordinated with the noise ordinances if you're going to put any restrictions on those activities. I am concerned about the constitutionality of selecting just houses of worships and private school and not other community entities. So I would encourage you to vote no on that first reading and go back to the drawing board. Anyway, thanks for all you do, guys. That's it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Jamie Strudo, lifelong Millburn Short Hills resident. I wanted to comment on a couple of items. One in particular, thank you to Crystal Woods and the Millburn Police Department for an amazing national night out, an amazing time to support our police, especially when they need that support more than ever. And thank you for always making us feel safe. All the first responders who were present. We all know Rocktoberfest is coming up on Saturday, the 13th, and we encourage members of the community and businesses to sponsor as well. You can go on the Ed Foundation website for that information. I also just wanted to highlight my support for the designation of the Paper Mill Playhouse, Taylor Park, and as well as Town Hall as historic. I believe we must preserve our historic landmarks in history and strive to preserve our bucolic community. And by designating these areas, we are, of course, setting ourselves up to continue to be a prosperous Millburn Short Hills. And in particular, Taylor Park, as I'm referencing Rocktoberfest, National Night Out, concerts, so many great things. It's really important. So I think it's on the theme, of course, with our 250th celebration of independence, which there's a committee of the township, which I do sit on, and members on the dais sit on as well. So let's not forget our history, stay safe, and I'll see you around town. Support local.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mike Stotts. I'm the executive director of Paper Mill Playhouse. As you all know, Paper Mill is a tenant of the properties at 13 to 23 Brookside Drive, where Paper Mill's resided since 1938. Ordinance 2711-25 to historically landmark this property has come up rather quickly and appears to be a rushed approval during the summer months when people are not probably paying as much attention. Seems to be a running theme this evening, actually. Paper Mill has sought legal counsel on this matter. Last night, I submitted to Mayor Romano and Deputy Mayor Cohen a legal analysis of this ordinance and its impact on Paper Mill. I'd be happy to share it with all of you. I will cite just one paragraph from the analysis and respectfully ask the Township Committee to kill this ordinance, or at the very least postpone the vote so that conversations can take place between the Township Committee and the Paper Mill Board of Trustees. I think the Board of Trustees, at the very least, of Paper Mill deserve this simple courtesy. The township cannot use its position as a governing body to enact a law that only affects Paper Mill and no other private member of the municipality, and in doing so, effectively impose a greater obligation on Paper Mill under its lease agreements. Pursuant to paragraph 1605 of the lease agreements, any amendment or modification to the terms of the agreement must be in writing and signed by the parties. In other words, both parties must approve the modification of the lease agreements. The township is effectively modifying the lease agreements by imposing greater responsibility on Paper Mill, A, by requiring it to comply with historic preservation requirements that impose more stringent maintenance, repair, and replacement responsibilities than than provided for under the lease agreements. B, thereby requiring paper mill to incur corresponding increased costs. C, by imposing a new layer of governmental review due to the historic preservation designation of the property. And D, by adding new limitations to any future renovation and expansion over the remaining potentially 50+ years of the lease term. In addition, the imposition of the historic designation impairs the right of purchase expressly provided for in the paper mill property lease by adding a new level of restrictions on the property and its operations expansions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Perry Urso. In regards to the comments during reports regarding events that were being held up on Upper Milburn Avenue, I do echo resident Mr. Feld attorney comments, not because he represents us, but because I am in agreement with him and I make my own decisions. Also, in regards to that event that was held. So I have a question. Because this is a controlled entity by the township, are they exempt from obtaining any type of permits? So as we heard, Mr. Feld said that there was no records found. So Upper Milburn Avenue or any of Milburn Avenue is a county road. And so were they required to get a permit from the county? Are they required to get a permit from the municipality? So sadly, Mr. McDonald is not there tonight, but he's very, I'm sure, seasoned about this. And if I, as a property owner or a business owner, would I be required to obtain those necessary and do the proper protocol if I were to have an event? If someone, maybe Mr. Hoffman or Attorney Cantor can please answer that for me. And also what I'm concerned about as a prominent property owner on Upper Milburn Avenue, I'm concerned about the liability. The liability that was impacted by an event, not only for property owners, but the liability that was placed upon the Township of Milburn. So do we condone having events that are not properly, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's not required, it's not required. But I do believe history does matter. And I believe strongly that the rules are for me and not for thee. And I just wanted to get that out there and hopefully you can answer questions. For liability purposes, should the township been held harmless by that entity? And should the property owners also been held harmless by the entity for that event? So I just feel that, the Township of Milburn and property owners were put into risk. But if you feel, or if it's not, then you condone it and do events without this type of protection, then you make the rules, you're up there. And lastly, I'd like to say how we were, I believe it was the July 17th meeting. I would hope that you all have the opportunity. April 7th was the due date for the property taxes. My property taxes currently, to my knowledge, are paid in full. So feel free to check that out. And my property taxes are always paid in full. So we do pay our property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close public comment. Committee on Subcommittee, you want to start?
Sure. All right, so first I want to start by addressing Ms. Eglow's comments. Ms. Eglow, your comments were in many ways false, misleading, and defamatory. So I'm going to explain. You made a comment about a report I gave at the last meeting. So at the last meeting, I pointed out that it was great that the town received $500,000 in funding from the state for a much needed pump. I also pointed out that that pales in comparison to the amount of revenue that they're going to get from the mansion tax that they pushed through with all Democrat votes. It was not done in a bipartisan manner. So our residents are gonna end up paying millions of dollars in this additional tax, and what do we get back? We get back scraps. So my point was, we should be getting more back from the state for all of the money that we're paying in. We have a lot more that we need to do in the way of flood mitigation, and if the state would help us out, we could make a much greater impact. So you definitely misconstrued my comments. Second, you mentioned some point tonight that I'm some sort of ringleader, driving a lot of these ordinances. So perhaps I'll give you a refresher, considering you were a former mayor and you were on the township committee, you should know this. Just because someone is sponsoring an ordinance doesn't mean they wrote the ordinance, and it doesn't mean that they're even gonna vote for the ordinance, okay? So in the case of ordinance number 2715-25, the first I saw that ordinance was when I received the agenda packet. And the reason that we have a first read, so we can decide if we want to move forward with that. We're actually going to be tabling that ordinance because there are some unintended consequences that could create for houses of worship. Some people spoke about that tonight. So we're going to go back to our planner that actually wrote the ordinance, and we're going to ask them to make changes so that it's not going to have unintended consequences. So that's for that ordinance. As far as the other ordinance, I'm gonna address that when it comes up for second read. But, I'd also like to point out that, you claim I'm some sort of ringleader against the High Center. Nothing could be further from the truth. The planning board voted 7-1 on that matter, okay? And the zoning ordinances that we are introducing now are to make clarifications to issues and deficiencies found in zoning codes. Oftentimes, we don't find issues and deficiencies in zoning codes until we have people come and try to push the bounds or stretch the limits of our zoning codes or do things that are against the spirit of our zoning codes, but are perhaps unclear. So we're trying to clarify our zoning codes, and we're trying to strengthen protections so that residents in single-family neighborhoods don't have undue burden from commercial properties that come in. Ms. Pasternak, I appreciate the history lesson. I think it's important that everyone remember that there is blood on Ms. Eglo's hands. And I find it offensive that she would come up and make the
Okay,
defamatory
you're
statements
offensive
that she
now. I
did.
gotta walk out here. I'm not the only
All
one being
right,
spoken to in the meeting.
moving on. So for all of you that came out
Excuse me,
tonight,
what is your name? Excuse me.
Mayor, we have some order here, please.
Thank you. Never walked out of a meeting before.
So for all of you that came out tonight from the Wyoming Presbyterian Church or the other houses of worship, really do appreciate you guys coming out. I understand you reached out to some of us in advance, and we had decided in advance that we were going to table this, but we didn't announce that at the beginning of the meeting because we wanted to hear all of your comments in case there was additional concerns that you had that we hadn't already been made aware of. So we will definitely go back to our planner, who probably is the one that actually wrote the ordinance, and we will have the necessary clarifications made before it gets reintroduced. So thank you for coming out and speaking up. It's much appreciated. I think that's all I have. Thanks. Oh, no, one final thing. Mr. Stotts. Yes, Mr. Stotts. It's interesting that you say that this historic designation for the paper mill, which is owned by the town, it's town-owned property. We bought it back in 2009 when the paper mill was going under, and we saved you guys. You're there because the town bought the property. It is historic, and if we, as a township, want to designate it historic, we have every right to do so. The fact that you're a tenant doesn't give you the right to tell us that we can't do that. I'm aware of the legal analysis you provided. It's faulty. And I think you made misleading statements when you're claiming that it would be a violation of the lease for us to declare it historic. That's simply not the case. I also find it ironic that you're concerned about the cost of future repairs, considering even though the paper mill is contractually bound to pay for repairs on the paper mill, you guys have never done so. In fact, you deferred maintenance and then came to us, and as part of asking for $7 million from this township, you said some of that money would be used to make repairs that you guys should have been making all along the way. So I think it's disingenuous for you to come here with such an attitude and accuse the township of trying to do things that are in violation of the lease. That's simply ridiculous. Now,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to just echo comments made by Regina Truitt about seeing if we can add important ordinances to the mayor's weekly message. And I'd love to see that we could add links to the agenda that goes out for the written part of it, so people can get to it quickly. Thank you.
How would you define it?
just link to the entire agenda.
It could, I mean, I mean, good point. It'd be better to link them all.
Deputy
Thank
Mayor
you.
Kelly?
Yeah, I have a few things. First of all, I should have mentioned this earlier on, but I'll just do it now. At the last meeting, people talked about, during public comment, their concerns about what was going on with ICE. In response to that, the township has on its website, and we'll be sending out a public message, they've codified what the agreement is between New Jersey at the state level and the county level, local level, in terms of what the police can do with respect to ICE. That's as far as we can take it without we're not able certainly to give legal advice to residents, but at least if you read that, you'll have a better understanding of what the police are and are not going to do. So that's one thing I mentioned. I've said that earlier. As per ordinance 2715-25, as Sacramento mentioned, we are going to table that. I think what was lost sight here is that this ordinance was intended to deal with when the conditional use is involved with outside entities. So when they rent space to someone, something like that, that was the intention, and to put some controls on that. It was not about activities like some of which that were mentioned, where it's an activity within the main purpose of the organization, something the organization is holding for itself. Any of those things that was not in the ordinance. However, as has been mentioned, based on tonight's comments and some others that I have received, there are some unintended consequences, and we'll be looking at tweaking that and tabling it and then bringing it up in the future meeting. I would like to ask Mr. Hoffman to make sure that Mr. Morelli's request of the safe storage of firearms, that announcement that go out to the public, because that is important and it's something that we should do. As for some of the other concerns with the other ordinance, again, for the existing houses of worship, it is, I'm not on the zoning board, but were you to, certainly if you're not doing any projects or whatever, no one's gonna come and say, well, you now all of a sudden, you have to do this. However, if you were doing some kind of expansion or renovation and you did go in front of the planning board or the zoning board to have and you have an existing non-conforming use, that is something that would come up, and depending on what it is, that's typically something that is understood and granted. Obviously, I can't say 100%, but that is typically how things are handled in that situation. Lastly, for all the people that talked about the Wyoming Club, what I would request that you do, as we've said many times, the best way to get those kinds of things resolved is to put an entry into the SDL portal. Not the best name for it, but if you go to the main page of the website, I think it says something like, have a complaint or something like that. Fill that out, talk about the activities that are going on, or they're going on late, or whatever it is that you feel is bothering you. That then gets tracked. It'll go, in this case, probably then go to the police department, whatever, the code officer, and then it's tracked and you can follow it, and somebody will act on it, and you'll see the status. And if it's not acted on, you'll see that too, and can escalate that. So that's the best way to get these problems solved, and I hope you're able to do that for the Wyoming Club.
Thank you. Committee Scholar?
Sure. So when I ran for this township committee, it seemed like forever ago, we ran on a platform of transparency, professionalism, competence, civility, bringing all that back to the township. And empathy and kindness, really, as well. In the immortal words of a prior national candidate, there's more that unites us than divides us. And we lose sight of that. These two ordinances that we're discussing tonight, I was gonna vote no on both of them. We tabled one, I'm gonna vote no on the other one. Not because I don't agree with it, because we're not educating and communicating to the public like we promised to. It seems that all the comments made on both sides were relevant, good comments that need to be discussed prior and ironed out prior to bringing it to make it an ordinance. The comments that Tara made on the tennis club and over on Linden, I 100% agree with. Stepping on the rights and the civil liberties of houses of worship and precluding them from having events, agree with. Mr. Frankel just walked out. What his comments were very eloquent. A lot of the comments made problem. Why are we airing this out here? It needs to be aired out prior to it going onto the agenda and coming to front of the town, or we look like the village idiots sitting here discussing these and then actually tabling them and voting on the other one. It doesn't make sense to me, and I'll do everything in my power to rectify that and make sure it's done appropriately. The issue with the historical designation of the paper mill, should it be designated historical? Yes. When should it be? Should it be done in communication and education with the folks who run the paper mill? Absolutely. Business decisions are made face to face, are not made by bureaucrats sitting up here writing laws and ordinances and just passing them and playing hardball with people. I would rather have a place where we all discuss it, communicate, educate each other, and move that forward. But it absolutely should be. And from that standpoint, though, it needs to be done in a business manner. Mr. Feld, it's my understanding, and I'm on the Explore board, we don't need a permit to have a fair on Upper Milburn, and I would ask Mr. Cantor to verify that. And that there is no, that the municipal authority is there to have that 48-hour fair if we wanted, without having to pass, that they have that discretion as the BA and or township, as long as that's granted. So many great things going on in our town. I know we're going to Town Hall Plaza's packed, the Thursday concerts are packed, Paper Mill's killing it. They have another show going on Broadway. They have, the businesses are packed, difficult finding parking spots, which are good. The fiscal position of our town has never been better, and we continue to attract the best businesses out there. And it's just a fantastic time to be a Milburnite, Short Hills resident. So I think we should embrace all the good things going on, but we do have to do a better job of communicating and educating with the public at large on some of these ordinances instead of ironing it out on the dais. And we all need to take responsibility for that. The WPC, I live on Wyoming, on the same block as the WPC, the good they do for our community. And I don't think anybody is arguing that they don't or wants to step on that. I just think it's a byproduct of passing an ordinance too quickly or pushing it out there without the proper education and communication. 100% believe that we have rights as residents. We don't want them to be impeded upon by commercial businesses, etc. And then we also have, I like a lot of what they say, but we have to be better, do better. I appreciate you all for coming out and sitting here at 9 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to echo everything that you said, from the ordinances to the paper mill historic designation. Thanking everybody for coming out tonight. You're right, the summer is normally when it's quiet, and this was a packed agenda. And I don't think it gave everybody an opportunity to thoroughly read through everything. And that's why we are in the situation where we are now, where we're tabling it. And I also agree with you with the paper mill. I think that we should wait until the construction is done and have a conversation with the paper mill. And I told some of my fellow committee members about this. They should not be finding out about it by seeing it on the agenda. Maybe they heard about it in advance, but someone should have had a conversation with them from the HPC whether they're a tenant or not. That's just not something a landlord does. And as far as the Upper Milburn Avenue, from what I understand, with the beer garden, he didn't get his permit in time from the state. That's why he wasn't there. That's what I was told.
And this is reminiscent of about 90 people showing up at a township committee before I was elected, with signs saying no to HPC for something that was actually probably beneficial to the neighborhood in totality, but it wasn't communicated or educated to anyone. It was just thrown on an ordinance, thrown on an agenda and thrust upon the community. So, you know, to do that.
That's actually a false statement. So the proper procedure outlined by the Historic Preservation Ordinance at the time was followed. Those that were affected by it or within 200 feet of it received letters. There was a hearing scheduled, and at the hearing, the matter was tabled.
Well,
from
once
what I
again, you're
understand.
missing the point of good communication and education and getting buy-in from all constituents, which are the 22,000 residents of this town. It's not whether you did something by the letter of the law, et cetera, et cetera. The whole idea of a community is working together to get the best outcome of the community, but I digress.
Just going that extra step just to educate. Okay, Mr. Cantor,
I really have, no response. I'll look into this. I don't have enough facts regarding, the festival. So I'll work with Mr. McDonald on that. I'll get a response to the committee on that and the public hopefully for the next meeting. Any questions regarding the ordinance? So I deal with the hearing if they do anything as well.
Well, on the our end, we'll look into the adding the agenda to the Milburn message and also the request for the state storage notice. Are there any other items that the township committee would like us to look into? Thank you.
Consent agenda items. The township committee will consider consent agenda resolution. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 25-190 through resolution 25-206, which are listed on the consent agenda? So moved. May I have a second? Yeah. Roll call please.
Who's second?
Did I get a second?
We need a second with this message.
I can second.
Thank you. Roll call please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 25-207? May I have a motion to approve resolution 25-207? May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Yes.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Ordinance 2715-25.
Is there a motion to table?
Motion to table ordinance 2715-25.
Second.
Roll call please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Okay, committee and Sacamandi are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2708-25.
I'd like to make a motion to table that as well.
I'll second that. Roll call please.
Any discussion?
Oh,
For the sense, for more education and communication with the public at large, I actually believe a lot of it that's in there and it's a benefit to our town. However, the way it's being thrust upon the residents, I just don't agree with, as seen from the number of residents that showed up tonight and the discussion thereafter.
Again, Mr. Stoller, that is a false and misleading statement. The first read of this ordinance was many, many weeks ago. In fact, it was already delayed once. So the public has had adequate time and notice to come and speak out against it. And there are some that chose to do so, and there are plenty that came and spoke in favor of it. So I think, since it passed on first read, and scheduled for tonight, we should vote on it. Vote on the motion.
roll call, so we have a person.
We have a motion and a second.
Yeah, so you're voting on a motion to table.
It. Roll call please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
No.
Mr. Cosgrove,
No.
Mr. Sakamandy,
No.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committee and second you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2708-25.
I present for consideration ordinance entitled Ordinance 2708-25, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Milburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that this public hearing be closed.
I'm not getting up. He's on down, bro. Okay, I'm just gonna wing it tonight. I'm ready for my flight tomorrow. I just wanted to talk about some other things. Going back to your right to enjoy a space. This town is being slowly chipped away by unscrupulous builders that have zero taste. There's realtors that are like banning road act, by the way. I don't think they've seen these houses, but they're pretty bad. They're like built out of like layman facility. So there's so many things. Again, I do think things should be grandfathered. Not everybody can always get what they want. I'd like to live in certain houses. I mean, I'd love to live next to the lake. I can't afford it. And even if I could, the person's not selling their house. So sometimes you can't shove yourself into a box, into a residential area that's already established and beautiful. It's very unfair to people that are already pre-existing living in an area to have a parking lot. If I had a parking lot slammed against my house and there was no buffer zone, which was going to happen to one of the residential people near Old Church Hills Road, I would be literally in tears. Because people spend, there's residents here for 30 years in their homes, okay? They bought their house, they scrapped everything together, they waited and built bit by bit. There's a lot of people here that just work hard and are super wealthy. And I think it's obnoxious to be so entitled that you can come in and just demand to be dumped down. And there's a lot of buying up of properties, which is really concerning to me. And we have really lax zoning codes. And quite frankly, if I was in charge of this, it would have been a lot stricter. Okay, and it should be applied to any kind of group, organization, country club, school, etc. It should be completely across the board. And you know what? You might have to wait till a church or a temple goes out of business to buy the property. I know that they're opening up a Latter-day Saints temple that's a big controversial issue in Summit. So that property looks like it's available. It's right there, ready to go. Why not look at something like that? Why do you have to force yourself into situations? So I know I don't have anything really eloquent to say, but I feel really strongly in support of this. And this was notified, and by the way, no one notified me about the cell tower that was put up close to my home. It was done on September 2nd last year. So kind of speak out on both sides of your mouth. Thank you.
Again, Beverly Ostrowski, interim pastor at Wyoming Presbyterian Church. I need to say that I am not speaking on behalf of the ruling board of the church because we did not have a chance to discuss this ahead of time. And I want to thank all the residents of Milburn for all the wonderful things you have done and you as our leaders to make this a wonderful place to live. Wyoming Presbyterian has been a part of that much longer than any of us have been, of trying to make this that community that you all want to be part of. I'm concerned about this particular ordinance. In case you don't know, the Wyoming church property includes a historic building that we are not allowed to do anything to except maintain and take good care of. We cannot sell it, we cannot change it, we must maintain it, and we are allowed to use it. It's called the Pony Barn or the Cottage. And I would say that it's in really good shape because not only have we taken care of it, but just this past week, we were leasing our space to a Netflix production company who came in and painted the building. something that would have stretched our finances at this moment and caused significant challenges to us. But also, again, the boundaries that are set here with no clause of being grandfathered in really concerns me that we're going to be in violation. I'm not great with math, but 100 feet setback on frontage to our front door, that's 30 yards. That's a third of a football field. And I'm fairly certain we are not 30 yards back, and there's nothing that's going to change that. The sidewalk into the main office door is this far from my neighbor's property line. That means we have to somehow adjudicate that. We just need to know what we're going to do and whether we're going to be protected for these kinds of things. So as far as the physical property, you have already approved that the open door nursery school can pick up and drop off children on Linden. We don't have any off-site parking, off-street parking. Thank you again for your dedication to trying to keep Milburn the community you want to live in and that you want people to enjoy, whether they live here or visit. And we just ask that you consider holding off on this vote, trying to amend it to take into consideration some of the concerns we have offered tonight. And I thank you again.
Good evening, Rabbi Mendel Wolfnowski, Township resident. Thank you, committee members, for everything you do for the township. My wife and I have lived here with our, thank God, 7 children and many grandchildren for 32 years. We work in town. Our people live in town. We love the town. We're very grateful. The town is such a wonderful town. And we're grateful for all the township committees throughout those 32 years who have shown selflessness, dedication, shown up to meetings when nobody else would show up, when there's hot outside, cold outside. So when we come up and complain, we're not complaining about you personally. We're complaining because sometimes when your toe is hurting because your shoes are wearing out, you give a little yell, but you're not angry at the shoemaker, you're simply yelling. So I think this ordinance that you just decided to discuss is very, very poor taste. And the reason is, and I've been involved with the changing of the ordinances since 2006. So as you know, Milburn Township's code was first adopted in 1985 or 87. And it was changed for the first time back in 2006, tried to change it for no reason except the fact that we bought a piece of property. And then you tried to change it again in 2008. That was tabled because we came and complained. And then when we sued you guys and you paid our lawyers $62,000 at Judge Lombardi in Newark, they issued that order, and unfortunately the township had to shell out that $62,000 to our lawyers because the ordinances were out of compliance. You then went and made 12 conditions. Now you're adding a number of conditions. Not a single house of worship complies. That's a travesty. You cannot write an ordinance that de facto makes every one of your houses of worship non-compliant. It's like writing a law that says, I don't know, you can't cross the street because I don't know what, and everybody crosses the street. So why are you writing that? That's the question you gotta ask yourself before you vote yes on this ordinance. Why? W-H-Y, one word. Why are you putting this ordinance into law? Not a single current house of worship, not 30 seconds, complies. So they didn't comply with the ordinance as it is, except for B'nai Jeshurun. And now with this ordinance, B'nai Jeshurun also will not comply, because one of the components is you can't have light poles that are higher than 12 feet, but B'nai Jeshurun's light poles are 25 feet. So if they decide to put another one additional light pole anywhere on their property, for whatever reason, they have to now go before the zoning board, not the planning board. And it is a travesty, and I'm sorry my time is up. It's very, very poor judgment.
Thank you.
My name is on?
Yeah.
Ricky Bogomilsky, lived in town since 1992. I want to read something. As a reaction to our plans, the township made 3 attempts to tighten the House of Worship ordinances, plus one that passed. Little history. November 2004, we negotiated for the purchase of one of the 6 remaining 3-acre lots in town. November 18, 2004, Township Committee introduces an ordinance removing houses of worship from the list of conditionally permitted use in any zone. The ordinance is later rejected by the planning board because they deemed it unconstitutional. They're waiting for a headline in the New York Times. I have the recording of it. February 2005, we purchased a property containing 1.2 acres at 1 Jefferson Avenue. Lo and behold, November 2006, Ordinance 2275-06 is introduced to increase the requirements for parking and setbacks for houses of worship. We make a fuss, they are not passed. During questioning, it becomes apparent that no other application for a house of worship has been made since 1950, besides our own. May 2013, Judge Lombardi strikes down the 3-acre house of worship requirement. In response, the township passes Ordinance 2417-13, more than doubling parking required and adding 8 new conditions to the 4 existing, making it thus harder. September 2024 to June 2025. We finally applied for a full conforming house of worship, 165 Ocho Hills Road. After 13 hearings, the board votes to deny our application. And what do you know? June, July 2025, right now, the township introduces a new house of worship ordinance, reducing lot coverage allowed by 30% and adding stricter buffer requirements. Member Stefan Andy, you said you're here just to clarify things. You're not clarifying reducing 35% to 25%. That's making something new. On the books right now, lot coverage is 35%. You're reducing it to 25. You're not clarifying anything. There was no dispute that it had to be 25. The only dispute there was the requirement of the 50-foot buffer, which does not pertain to residential zones. So let's make it clear. You're not clarifying, you're adding new ordinances. Thank you. Can you turn your camera on? No, it doesn't look like it. It's our camera. That's dropped off.
Still there.
Who is it?
Murder Mason. Yes, not working.
In that case, I move this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading and that the township clerk be directed. Can I finish this and then we can have a discussion? That's the proper procedure. Okay, thank you, Matt. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. Now, before we go further, I'd like to point out that I think a lot of you have misunderstanding about how pre-existing non-conforming structures work. The ordinance.
You have to ask for a second.
Oh.
I have a second.
Second.
Okay.
Now we'll have our discussion.
Now,
So when you have zoning ordinances that come out, they don't apply to pre-existing non-conforming structures. That would be ridiculous if they did, right? You'd never be able to make a new ordinance because then potentially, a lot of people would be in violation. So for example, the Wyoming Presbyterian Church, you don't have to worry about any of these zoning ordinances, or this particular zoning ordinance, because it won't apply to you unless you decide to expand what you already have, or if you decide to tear it down and build something new, then they would apply. Furthermore, when you have an application that goes before planning board, the rules that are in effect for that application are the ones at the time of application. So if zoning code changes are made subsequent to that, it's still based on the time of the original application. So what this ordinance does is it takes things that were identified over the past several months as deficiencies in our zoning code or lack of clarity, seeks to clarify them, and then it also seeks to make changes to help protect single-family residences from commercial properties that might be coming in and encroaching on their property. It clarifies the buffer requirements, and quite honestly, you know, I think it's a good ordinance, and yes, I agree, we should have had the provisions in there in place way before. You know, in hindsight, everything's 2020, right? But zoning codes evolve over time, and they evolve over time because new issues are identified, things that hadn't been thought of previously. And when they are, it's the responsibility of the township and the planning board, and in some cases the zoning board, when we identify these things, we should address them so that we don't continue to have ambiguity and lack of clarity. So that's the purpose of this ordinance.
Thank you, Frank. So to my point, this is why we need better education and communication. If we were gonna grandfather in all that our houses of worship, it would have been nice to know that prior to, for our township committee meeting, tonight. Understanding that there's no effects on existing structures and houses of worship, et cetera. I mean, I think that will be appreciated by the community. Talking about how these apply to builds like the tennis club, you know, in principle, I think, but this is points to the problem that we need better communication and education prior to these meetings. It would have been nice to have a community meeting or open night where we could just discuss this for a community at large. I think it would have saved a lot of aggravation, a lot of stress, a lot of consternation by residents. But thank you for making that statement.
And that's why we have public comment. That's why we have township meetings. That's why we publish an agenda, right? When this went up for first read, residents had the opportunity to comment twice. There were 2 public comment sessions. We then had an opportunity for residents to make comment earlier tonight. We had a second opportunity. We had multiple weeks in between first and second read. So yeah, a lot of people aren't paying attention to things, but we can't go and send a notice to every single person in town every time we want to pass an ordinance. It's just not feasible, and there's a reason that that's not required.
And I tend to agree, obviously, though, for certain items like this to have the civility and professionalism and to avoid these type of situations, I think it would be nice, especially for ordinances as important as this, to avoid the stress on residents. But I still thank all the residents for coming out, both sides, you know, great, but, you know, there is really only one side now. Now you say that these are gonna be grandfathered in. I would like to have started with that comment.
Well, that's something that any of us that have been involved with zoning would know, and actually you as an elected official, I would expect you to know some of these things. These are basic land use concepts.
Yeah, but I'm not on zoning or planning, right? So, you know, we all have certain items that we're bringing to and we're spending, you know, I'm on 8 committees, the time that's spent at those committees. As a professional, even in my organization, not working at home or in IT or whatever you do, is good communication always wins the day. It really does. And, you know, explaining everything to your peers is very, very important because it helps eliminate situations like this. But thank you for finally getting to that point. Appreciate it.
Roll call vote.
Wait a minute, before we have a roll call, the planning board passed a resolution and found that it was not inconsistent with the master plan. However, they did make 7 recommendations. So recommendations were considered by this committee prior to this vote. So we are in receipt of that resolution. The first 2 comments are de minimis, they're non-material, they're basically typos in the ordinance. So I would ask at least that we incorporate those typos. One was, and it's carried through the entire agreement, that we add and public and private schools to the last whereas clause as it's within each whereas clause. The whereas clauses are not material to the ordinance, but the therefore all has house of worship linked with public and private schools. And secondly, the word buffer in section 2 at 1.j is lowercase, where it should be uppercase. So I asked first that we amend to incorporate the first 2 comments of the planning board. I found them not to be material. I continue to adopt tonight as amended with those 2 minor modifications. So we need a motion to amend to incorporate those first 2 comments.
I make a motion to amend the ordinance as per what Attorney Cantor just explained to correct those 2 technical errors.
I'll second that.
I don't remember the other recommendations that we.
Yeah, the intention is to then incorporate those in the subsequent amendment to this order.
Or more
Or
general,
not, you know.
more general in case you've got some stuff on new business that's gonna cover everything.
Right.
In your roll call,
Roll call vote, please.
to amend,
Oh, as
To
amended.
amend.
to amend.
To amend. Oh, roll call to amend.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano,
Yes. So now,
I need a motion to adopt.
okay, so now
Motion
motion,
to adopt as amended.
So I make a motion that we adopt the ordinance as amended.
I'll second that.
roll call please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano,
Yes. Okay, committee and subcommittee are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2711-25.
I present for consideration ordinance entitled ordinance number 2711-25, ordinance designating the Paper Mill Playhouse, 22 Brookside Drive, as a historic landmark pursuant to the historic preservation ordinance of the Township of Milburn. Tonight, the time set for the public hearing and final passage is advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I'm making a comment, I'm on the HPC as an alternate, and, I'm just making a comment as a homeowner and a resident in Milburn, Christine Best. I fully support all the new HPC designations you've made, I'm very excited about it, it's such an important, organization, and the Paper Mill Playhouse. I mean, I remember going to it when I was a little girl, I used to come up from Westfield and drive to the reservation and come back around to the paper mill, and it's so exciting to me, and it's so similar to what it was, and some of the restorations they're doing are keeping, you know, with some of the historic nature of it, it works visually, but it's such a beautiful building, and it should 100% be historic, and as the other designations, I'm only speaking to this one, and, you know, this, the people do, you know, talking about the lease, I mean, it's just really just ridiculous. I mean, we just gave them what, $7.5 million. I'd like $7.5 million to do something in this town. You know, that's a lot of money for a private organization, and I wasn't really for it, but I understand why the town did it, so I respect your decision. But, you know, they need to maintain that building, and it should be historic, because if it's not historic, it really loses its charm. And again, we just turn into Route 22, Milburn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Mike Stotts, Executive Director at Paper Mill. You know, all I am really doing here is trying to implore the Township Committee to enter into a conversation with the Paper Mill Playhouse Board of Trustees regarding this ordinance. We did not find out about it other than in Tap Into a couple of days before the last Township Committee meeting. And I think that given the fact that we are a tenant in the building, and we're the only building of the 3 properties that are being designated tonight, we're the only one where, as far as I know, there is a long-term tenant that does have will have some effects that we have to incorporate into our operating plan because of this designation. And I do think it would be a courtesy to our board to have that conversation. So I hope that you consider that. And I thank Ben Stoller for everything that you said about being transparent about it and entering into a conversation so that we can actually have a real conversation around what implications there may or may not be on our lease. Let's have that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Abstain.
Mayor Romano,
No. Deputy Mayor Cohen.
The ordinance, I just want to say the ordinance passed.
Deputy Mayor Cohen, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2712-25.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2712-25, ordinance designating the Milburn Town Hall at 375 Milburn Avenue as a historic landmark pursuant to the Historic Preservation Ordinance of the Township of Milburn. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare a hearing open.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Sakamandy,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Meeting and Sakamandy are scheduled to sponsor 2713-25.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2713-25. Ordinance designating the Taylor Park 100 Main Street as a historic landmark pursuant to the Historic Preservation Ordinance of the Township of Milburn. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with the law.
Can I ask a quick question? Is now it's when I ask a question?
Yeah, there was a second. Let's get a second.
Second.
And then you have as much discussion as you like.
Oh, okay. So my question with this one is, if at a later time, we wanted to put in a girls softball field and we wanted to build dugouts. What is that?
All that would have to do is go in front of the HPC for review, but
A dugout?
considering that it's, a park and that those are things that you might typically find in a park, I don't see why that would be any issue whatsoever. What this will do is potentially give us opportunities for grant funding in the future for restoration work on the park.
If it's a state designated, I believe.
Well, the first step is to
So that's the.
to do the local designation.
And I would think a dugout may be more challenging, Frank, a cement dugout in the middle
Yeah.
of Taylor Park
Yeah.
might be more challenging. So just, full information disclosure that, I am pretty sure they're not gonna let a cement structure be built in a historical designated park. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I don't want a dugout in the middle of Taylor Park next to a 100-year-old oak tree.
Right, yeah, for government work, what the HPC would do is advise.
Yeah, it's
So we can, if we wanted to put a dog out, we can absolutely do that.
If we wanted to.
If we wanted to, yes.
You're not advocating I'll put a dugout.
I'm not making.
I'm
a
not saying it's
suggestion.
happening tomorrow, but I mean, I don't know, if
But
you just
if
never
we
know.
wanted to, we could, it is municipal and
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sakamandy,
yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Okay, I am scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2714-25. I'm not ready. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2714-25. An ordinance to amend and supplement Chapter 5 General Licensing of the Code of the Township of Milburn by adding Section 4-43, Commercial Landscaping and Lawn Maintenance Licensing. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. So this is our landscape license. I declare the hearing open. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
I have a question on this one. I support it, but I'd say that up front. But my question is, how is this, what is the enforcement? And as we talked a lot tonight about transparency, what is the plan to know, and how do we know all the landscapers that are in town? Because they range from someone that has a huge business to somebody that may just do one house in town. How do we keep track of that?
My understanding, there'd be a decal that it would all landscapers would have in that case. And it would be up to the forester, superintendent, public works, code enforcement officers to be able to actually enforce the ordinance.
So if they saw a truck that didn't have that decal?
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of the operational rules inside of this ordinance, I mean, no parking within 50 feet of other vehicles, all for it. Cones and signage behind it, so you don't run into the back of it, by mistake, all for it. So I think there are some good operational rules in there. And the enforcement's gonna be the big issue, because we could drive through the town on a Saturday, and you're not gonna see one sign or one cone. You're gonna see, especially on Wyoming Avenue, you're gonna see a truck on top of a truck.
But I would suggest that using some of the knowledge gained from the leaf blower ordinance, where they were able to call an assembly of landscapers, that we do something similar to advise them, not just of the licensing, but also some of the new requirements that Committeeman Stoller just spoke about.
Sounds great, thank you.
Roll call vote, please.
Deputy Mayor Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove,
Yes.
Mr. Sacamandi,
Yes.
Mr. Stoller,
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have no matters for old business, new business. Mr. Petto.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Township Committee. My name is Graham Petto, here this evening, Township Planner. We have for you this evening for just initial discussion prior to introduction are two additional ordinances, just the other land use ordinances here on referral from the Zoning Code Examination Committee. The two ordinances that are here for initial discussion for your advisement in advance of introduction govern two different pieces of code. First is proposed amendments to the accessory uses in residential districts. This is an ordinance that would amend section 609.1, creating some clarifying parameters regarding location and installation of air conditioning units that service residential properties. Specifically would add a section prohibiting the location of rooftop installation of HVAC mechanical units. And also clarifying and restructuring this section of the ordinance to better convey the permitted locations, yard and screening requirements, and also creating a new section for replacement exemptions. So existing units in a location can be replaced in kind as long as they're not larger or different than the units. I shouldn't say different. It's installed in the exact same location and is not larger in size or height than the unit being replaced. Second, the ordinance also further classifies regulation of accessory buildings, structures, and uses as they are treated with respect to principal buildings. We have in the ordinance already some existing language that accessory uses and structures that are proximate or attached to or very close to principal buildings are to be treated as part of the principal building. We've just clarified that language so it's a little bit more user-friendly and transparent and easier to understand and convey the regulations therein. And then finally, the last section of this ordinance is also to establish a prohibition on accessory dwelling units. So this prohibits accessory dwelling units within residential districts and creates very clear parameters around that framework for that prohibition as well. Any questions on this first ordinance?
So I should cancel my 5 or 6 accessory dwelling units I ordered on Amazon, right? Is this in line with other towns similar to Milburn, Short Hills, i.e. Livingston, Summit, Westfield, et cetera, similar permissions in place?
With
Restrictions?
respect to the accessory dwelling units?
Or no, for the air conditioners and all of the other items that are discussed in this ordinance?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Any questions? So we have a consensus to move forward.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Now, I'd like to point out, Mr. Stoller, if you would like to avail the community, this will be coming up in the future on first read. Now's an opportunity to have in the coming weeks to do so.
Sure, thank you for that. You know, it might not hurt to have a discussion or communication or even put it into the message. I mean, there's not enough transparency that we can provide as leaders in this town elected by the residents. So I would like to have a lot of education and communication. If you're against it, so be it, but I do believe in good education and communication.
If I can, just to facilitate some of that communication, I'm happy to, work with the administration to answer any questions that residents may have, or, provide an opportunity to address questions or comments as well in advance of the introduction.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
The second ordinance that is scheduled for initial discussion this evening in advance of initial introduction is an ordinance that would amend the DRZ 512 section. It's DRZ 512 and DRZ 513. It would establish a new section 513. It's important to note that the DRZ has in the 500 series a series of requirements related to site plan and subdivision standards. These are regulations applicable to developments for applications for development pending before land use boards. And specifically, the proposed draft ordinance revises and amends the lighting standards for site plan applications specifically. Presently within the ordinance, the lighting standards are only applicable by specific zone district. They are not applicable to projects or applications for development at large, irrespective of their location within the township. So the proposed ordinance herein modifies that and now makes a series of regulations and requirements that are applicable to all types of development applications without regard to their location. The ordinance went through a lot of work at the zoning code examination subcommittee. It requires submission of a detailed lighting plan, establishes parameters for lighting temperature, height of fixtures, a series of requirements as well, and also a consideration of those lighting fixtures to be installed adjacent to residential uses and separation therefrom for those light fixtures as well. The second part of this ordinance that will be introduced, should the committee wish to move forward, creates a similar series of standards around landscaping and treatment of landscaping, requiring a 70% native provision, consistent with the township's policy for native plantings on these applications for development on these site plans, and also some buffering and other landscape requirements, shade tree coverage, et cetera. There's a series of requirements that we work through. The existing site design ordinance for the township does not contain many of these standards, so these are new standards that will bring the township into conformance with many other surrounding communities that do require this level of submission and this detail of their development applications to make sure that they are consistent and have long-term longevity within the community as well.
These are residential, new developments and like what size?
It's applicable to site plan applications, so it would be any non-residential development, mixed-use developments, multi-family housing developments, those types of applications.
It applies across the board.
That's correct. Yeah, irrespective of which one of those, it applies to all uniformly.
And so some of the stuff in here, I think, adds some clarity. I mean, we've seen years since the planning board, a lot of talk of lighting. Would you say that this ordinance helps clarify that and establish clear guidelines that people can follow prior to coming before one of those?
100%, yeah, and that's really kind of one of the key basis for this ordinance is to establish that framework within the site design section. Oftentimes applicants, developers go through the ordinance in detail to see what are the requirements, and the lack of requirements, I think, was giving us kind of deficient submissions at the land use board. So now we have kind of the roadmap as to what the boards expect to see in design submission.
Has the town forester signed off on this as well and given her nod of approval that she's on board with these.
That process has not been completed, but I think that that might be a good recommendation from this body to do so prior.
Yeah, I would recommend that being done prior to it coming, but just to get there.
Happy to help facilitate it.
Okay, great, all good? Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Final public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or a property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and middle to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Again, Chairman Phil, public section. Just a few comments regarding paper milling. I'm really confused. Our VA sits on the board of trustees. And we just heard that they had no constructive active notice of this ordinance. I mean, I'm just confused. This goes back to the original COVID. Did he have a conflict of interest, or VA have a conflict of interest when he deferred the payments and did not use the monies that were under the original lease to go into our general budget? I mean, that's one issue. Also, I think based on some of the comments, Ms. Best, that when we talk about, we heard the word transparency a lot today. That's a major theme. I think if we can have a map or where all the 5G new cell towers are, I think that would help, I think, a lot of people, because you hear different confusions where they're located. On National Night Out, I discovered for the first time that there is an expanded, more inclusive 9/11 memorial plaque to the left of the entrance on the Main Street to Taylor Park. The question I have, I wish the VA was here, what was the cost of that new plaque? Why can't that plaque also be placed in front of the 9/11 Crescent Memorial? I've been talking about that, Gina's been talking about that. Our families were impacted on that event. And if the cost is minimal, I'll go in my pocket, but I think this community, many people were impacted. I know neighbors whose brothers were on one of the planes. I know people that never went back to work because they witnessed planes coming in. And I just like that being more a community building. And also, I think we heard the word Wild West. I think we need to keep a little eye on what's going on in a lot of projects, permits. People about to open up their buildings, changing uses, then they find out they have to go to the boards. How did the construction get done? Was not the first time. There's been many incidents in the last few years where new businesses come in, they're about to open, and they're told they have to go to the zoning or planning board. I think we need to have a little more oversight in our municipal planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Morelli, resident. I just want to say I was very heartened to hear the conversation back and forth about informing the public of potential ordinances. And I'll highlight a couple of examples that just came to mind during the discussions. I remember there was a recommendation from the rec committee a few years ago to replace the par 3 golf course with 5 turf fields. It never got to the ordinance stage. But due to public feedback on the proposal, a series of sessions was held with the public, gathering information. The surveys were held, information was gathered, and I think the town learned an awful lot about the needs of the recreation department, the needs of the schools, and it even resulted, if I'm not mistaken, in a change to an element of the master plan. And I think that would have never happened if you did not hold those public information sessions. Those information sessions are different than the 3 minutes that people are allowed to give a comment, may or may not get a response. but it is a different atmosphere where people are having dialogue with officials. And I encourage the township committee, when there are controversial ordinances or proposals, to hold those sessions with the public. I think that's how you get meaningful comment. On the flip side, I can point to a 2021 ordinance regarding the distance that restaurants are allowed to be in proximity to residential housing. There were no public information sessions. The ordinance was pushed through. Residents first found out about it when they got the notice in the mail. Residents even hired a planner to rebut the ordinance. But the planner was given 3 minutes in a town hall meeting, and they got through about 1/10 of the information they wanted to present. So I think when we have these very controversial or very impactful changes that we want to make to our ordinances, that we do what's been suggested and hold an information session. It can be virtual, it can be a one-time thing, but Township Committee may in fact learn something in that process. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, resident. I just want to thank Mr. Sacamandi, Mr. Cohen, and Mr. Cosgrove for performing your fiduciary duties tonight for the residents of this town, in spite of the ignorance and misinformation that was discussed here tonight about the ordinance that was obviously hotly debated. I want to also point out that I know Mr. Stott's got on there making claims. Paper Mill lost over $1 million in 2024. And the executive director, Hobie, and I believe his co-executive director got raises. Interesting. There was an argument made early on when the paper mill $7 million payment was being discussed that it was all about, we had to save our downtown restaurants. I think Mr. Stoller made a pretty strong worded argument about that. Yet we found out later, long after that proposal was presented to the public, that the paper mill restaurant was being substantially expanded. I don't know about the transparency on that one. I wonder what business person would find this proposition that we now have put our town into with paper mill as a good one. Ms. Romano, you chaired this meeting, you set the agenda. So anything that people don't know is really your responsibility because you're the one that chairs the meeting. That's your key responsibility as mayor. So the other thing that I would also like to point out that this meeting got out of control this evening. There was a member, a former mayor, that was shouting for quite a long time and nothing was said. I found that rather interesting. Mr. Stoller and Mr. Romano, you offered a lot of advice, Ms. Romano, sorry, about transparency. But what happened when dozens of calls, emails, texts, conversations came to you from many members of the public about the $7 million taxpayer-funded transfer of money to the paper mill? Not any of us were heard, not any of us were listened to. There were very skilled and knowledgeable people who came to you to talk to you about this, and you were ignored, you were yelled at, etc. So I don't really like to hear people being admonished about transparency when in fact, I can say personally, that's not how I was treated when I came asking for transparency. Perhaps because this is an election year and Ms. Romano is on the ballot, that explains some of the theatrics going on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Republican Chair Pasternak.
Boy, I didn't expect to get up and speak. Amy Shear, should I cut you off? No, okay. 30-year resident. Paper mill is not a normal tenant leasing, leaseor situation. Milburn is the paper mill. Paper mill is Milburn. They can't just pack up and go somewhere else. They're a big part of this town. Restaurants profit from it. A lot of people profit from it. It's a jewel. And to not discuss with them any changes in an ordinance, and it's really appalling. I think it does a lot for this town. I've been a subscriber for 30 years, as long as I've been here. And I do think they should have been taken into consideration before. To me, at first I thought, no, make it a historical
whatever the word is. But there are implications of that. And I just think you're treating it kind of like a normal tenant landlord type of thing, which it is not. Okay, so you gave the money, you enabled them to survive, they deserve to survive. It's a great organization. And I hate to see them kind of sidelined on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things. One, to say that the Wyoming church, as every Presbyterian church, does not actually own its property. We're held by our constitution. All of our property is held in trust for our denomination. And so in the interest of transparency, I'll let you know that I will need to share these documents with our denomination in case there are things they need to be aware of in the effect of the ordinances you pass. Secondly, I lived in Fanwood, this is a personal, totally personal thing. Lived in Fanwood, New Jersey when I was in middle school, went to Park Junior High School at that time. I have interviewed for a variety of churches in this area over the years as a career in ministry, but have lived in Georgia pretty much the rest of my life. Every time I interviewed with a church here, my mother spoke about how much she enjoyed coming to the Paper Mill Playhouse. And I hope that you will do everything to continue to support this valuable arts community here. My mom died last year. I didn't get a chance to tell her I was coming here and intended to attend a show at one of her best memories of going to the Paper Mill Playhouse. Thank you for taking care of it.
Thank you. Now I saved the cookies for last. I'm gonna talk about 5G, Christine Bass and Milburn. I think you guys all know that there's 3 small cell towers and one with a mini, called the mini cell on top of the small cell node. I'm not a tech person, but I asked you not to put that up then. I didn't get a response from anybody on the township committee because of health reasons for myself and also for the fact that you didn't notify anybody in the town about what you guys are doing. And I just happened to be driving up the road one day and I'm like, oh yeah, there's Verizon or AT&T or whatever random cellular tower company like putting up a tower. And I wanna know, like, why do you guys, I have literally talked to you guys about this, I presented so much science. There's science. People are like, there's no science. There's tons of white paper studies, okay? Don't insult me and say that there aren't, because they are. And the fact that you couldn't tell somebody, like you had a whole year to tell everybody. There's a woman, I went and spoke with the doctor, she's a retired neurologist, she popped that right in front of her house. She's like, didn't even know, and she was intimidated to come here tonight to speak, by the way, because they were so rude to her in the town hall about it when she asked about it. Also, there's another doctor across the street that I spoke with who had no idea. You can't put a cell tower within 100 feet of the house. You're gonna fry these people. 5 years from now, they're gonna be sick. You cannot do that. There was a safety study done by the state of New Hampshire, okay? I talked about it in the last meeting. 1,640 feet. Okay, why didn't you have the respect to like relook at that? You never developed a commission. I've been asking you since 2022. And you know what? You guys probably don't have a cell tower within 1,640 feet of your house. So, you know, yay for you. But it's really, it's rude, it's subhuman. And then we sit and we're talking about many things like, you know, arguing like we didn't give proper notice about zoning stuff. That zoning stuff is important. But this is really important. This is people's health, okay? I don't know if anybody here on this dais has ever had somebody who has any kind of physical disability or limitation, but I can tell you that I do, and you're also violating the ADA law. I don't want to have anxiety from having a cell tower. I think what you're doing is completely wrong, and you're also not even looking at a town like Palo Alto, California, okay? home of the most brightest and most brilliant VC and tech people, they don't allow within 1,640 feet. But we do, because we're not smart. And honestly, it really upsets me that everybody's doing this sort of dog and pony, like, I'm on a social committee show, popping up in like photo ops, and not even caring about people that pay $30,000 to $100,000 in taxes. I'm very, very upset.
Hi, thank you. Perry Urso, Upper Milburn Avenue. I just wanted to go back to my comments about the Upper Milburn Avenue event that was being held. Based on my questions and the answers that were made by committee member and our mayor, so you can confirm that there was no type of permitting required. And I believe that you said it was at the discretion of our BA. So I just want to make sure that as a property owner and a business owner, that if I want to have an event, all I have to do is ask the BA and I could shut down an entire street because I want to have an event in front of my business. So if that's the case, that's great. I did a quick Google on the, and I went to like the township website and quickly, Milburn Township, New Jersey, dated March 28th, 2024. And if you click on that link, can you tell me, would the Township's Recreation Department special event permit apply? Can you also tell me, would the Township's block party permit application apply? And
Ms. Urso, no one made those comments before, but you can continue.
Wait.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Go ahead,
It's a out of order.
continue,
No,
No, I
she's
didn't
out.
hear what you said.
continue. You can continue. I said that's not what was
Which,
said
I'm
earlier,
sorry, with
but
all due
continue.
respect, with all due respect, Mayor Romano, I was stating something, you interrupted me, and I'm
Go ahead,
asking
I'm
you to
sorry.
tell me what you said. That's all.
I stated that we did not say anything about permits with Upper Milburn Avenue.
Okay, well then I stand to be corrected. So, according also to the ecode360.com, would authorization for the closing of any street apply? And when I go back to the quick Google and I go to the, to close a street for an event in Milburn Township, you need to apply for a social affair permit with the municipal clerk. Now, social affair permit, does that mean because there's alcohol being served? Applications should be submitted online at least 21 days before an event. For applications submitted less than 21 days notice, a paper application must be submitted at least 14 days in advance. And here's other breakdowns. And you can click on all of these. Application process, there's an online application, the paper application, endorsement. And then there's the key information about timing. There's fees that have to be paid to like DPW, the police, responsibility. And what struck me mostly is the liability. Applicant must release township from liability related to the event and agree to indemnify the township against any claims or losses. Additionally, there's other resources and yada, 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 but that was just a quick Google search. But when you click on special event permit applications, there is a PDF, and that's what I got this. Coincidentally, it is a Milburn Township Special Event Regulations and Procedure from the Rec Department. That's it's called the Milburn Township Recreation Department Special Event Permit. So if anyone would be happy to opine on that, I'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Right, second, why are you voting, second Mandy, you voting against it? we're talking about 5 sit-downs a year, times 60 seats, is 300 seats lost to 300,000 visitors coming to town per year for the Paper Mill Playhouse. We went extensively, there's no person I didn't meet with and discuss why we were gonna do it. Just for the record, it's $347,000 of positive inflows versus $200,000, just under $200,000 of net outflows. Our CFO did a complete financial analysis, showed we were net positive on the trade, versus letting the paper mill possibly go to another town. It's incredulous that that would even be brought up tonight, especially without the facts. In fact, I think we should ask, elections do matter, so we should ask the new Republican candidates what their position is on the paper mill playhouse before we do have them jump ship and leave town. Honestly, it's the biggest gaslighting I've seen in a long time at one of these meetings. Ms. Best, I sent multiple emails to Alex to understand the location of those pieces. I'm not sure if you're talking to me or just looking at me, but 100% I agree that we need to look at the modality of how internet's being offered to our residents. We had a whole host of people calling and going, thank God we're gonna have some cell service in Short Hills, and they were not worried about the health effects. Our job is to make sure we understand all of the different residents' concerns, not just a few people, et cetera, et cetera. We went through this on the leaf blower. Amy Shear, it's great to hear your story in terms of the paper mill and the memories that you built and had over your life and your departed mother. Thank you for taking that story and sharing it with the Township Committee. And to Mayor Romano, we didn't say that we deferred the question on the permit to our counsel, who said he would look into it and come back with an answer. So I'm not sure where we're being questioned there. And Jay, thank you for those positive comments. That Part 3 course and that communication did promulgate a lot of vision to what's the most important part of this town is our children. And do they have the recreational fields that are needed? And in comparison to other towns where we look like a third world country with our fields versus Westfield, Livingston, Sparta, you can name them. I've coached just about every sport in this town, and it's an embarrassment of what our fields look like. And that was all started and precipitated off of that Part 3 conversation. That's it. Thank you.
I don't have anything to add.
Nothing.
Thank you.
Sure. So there's been a number of comments about the paper mill tonight. I'd like to point out the historic designation for the paper mill is something that's been contemplated and talked about some form or another since 2022. It predates this township committee. So for them to say they didn't know this is coming, that's kind of ridiculous, especially considering that our business administrator, Alex McDonald, sits on the board of the paper mill. Alex McDonald was also aware of the fact that we were going through this process. The historic designation process is actually a fairly long process. So what happens is it goes to the HBC, and we actually just did an update to the HBC ordinance early on in our term, in my term. And it clearly outlined what the process was and the timeline, and all of that was followed. And Alex McDonald, in fact, would have been the one to let the HPC architect know that we wanted to go ahead and get a report done, et cetera. So if Alex failed to let the paper mill know, that's kind of disappointing, and we'll ask him about that when he returns. Now, I also think, doesn't the mayor also have some sort of advisory or honorary position on the board? No, it's not the case, no liaison, okay, fair enough. So I don't know, for the paper mill to say they didn't know about this, that's just ridiculous. And then they sent to our attorney a letter that was sort of threatening in nature, and that just doesn't seem like them being a very good tenant. Ms. Pasternak, thank you for pointing out that the paper mill lost $1 million last year, and their directors did receive a raise. that's kind of ridiculous. It's also just in the sake of full transparency, since we want to make sure everyone's aware of what might be coming down the line. The paper mill is currently right now behind the scenes working to try to renegotiate some elements of their lease. They want to reduce the amount that they pay us for certain things that are in the lease. So it's just astonishing that they would come and make the fuss that they have after we've been so generous as a town with our money to prop them up, keep them around. And furthermore, I'd like to point out that at no point during the past 2 years was the paper mill ever considering leaving. They never gave us any indication that they were going to move to a different town. They still have like 15 plus years left on their lease. So they weren't going anywhere anytime soon. Ms. Best, you and I have had extensive discussions about the 5G towers. You know, I think this is an instance where we have to benefit, or we have to balance the public good versus, you know, the special needs of a few individuals. Dead zones in town can create problems for police and first responders. Our police cars have a lot of advanced modern technology that relies on cellular connectivity in order for the license plate readers to work, in order for them to look up license plates, et cetera. It's just really important that we have solid coverage. And so what the cell phone carriers have been doing is putting these small cells in places, because the small cells actually emit far less RF radiation than a full-size tower. And from what I understand, these small cells put out a tiny fraction of what's allowable by law. So if you needed to have cellular connectivity, a small cell is going to be safer than a large tower. So I know that's not going to alleviate all your concerns, but I just want to put that out there. And also, you know, the thing about the science behind this is, you know, there's science on both sides, but the preponderance of the science and the science that is accepted by the US government and the Federal Communications Commission indicates that these things are safe, and our town is following all guidelines when it comes to the placement of these devices. Thank you.
Mr. Hunter.
Just two minor points of clarification. I think just to echo Committee Mandy's comments just regarding the 5G tower. It's my understanding that that was approved back by the Township Committee in September. So there was an opportunity for discussion about that. And regarding Upper Milburn Avenue, we'll be in contact with Mr. Cantor just to go through the timeline on that. But that is something that took a lot of coordination with the township resources, police department, fire department. We're all obviously involved in that. To close the streets, not a small thing, so that does take a lot of effort on the township side. So that's not something that just happened. So I just want to be clear on that front.
Thank you. Mr. Cantor, do you have any?
Nothing there, thank you.
The only thing I want to add as far as setting the agenda, what I have before me during agenda meetings is bills that, you know, whatever either contracts need to be addressed or resolutions and ordinances normally come from, or new business, old business, come from other committee members or from planning or HPC or environmental or somewhere else. I just don't create the agenda by myself. I just wanted to add that. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, thank you.